sloppy, sloppy. What you have to say for yourself? Bring your buns on. There's enough for everybody. I ain't tuned to take your place. Yeah, this just a hobby. Only thing I'm missing, it ain't a lot. Got the heat, got the meat, got the A1. Just need some buns, big buns. If we gonna do it right.
So I can only see me. Will I be able to see what you're doing or no? Yeah. Might be better. I think I'll have it for reference, but I shouldn't be looking at it because it'll mess me up on sync. Okay. I'll be able to watch it afterwards, right? I'm ready.
What's up, guys? All right. As everybody comes in, today's gonna be something a little bit different. All right, I got somebody here with me. Now I'm gonna do a little intro for him. Welcome back to the Forge, guys. Filling in. All right, we're doing an interview. We're performing an induction, pretty much. We are bringing a new officer into the Phalanx. He has a story so perfectly aligned with our mission, you would think I wrote it as a metaphor, but I didn't. He lived it. For 2 years, this man lived in a 2004 Chevy Silverado pickup. He drove 170,000 miles. He brushed his teeth in gas station bathrooms. He risked everything he had to fight a massive, corrupt, industrial giant that was killing people to save $2 on a guardrail. The name of that corrupt giant was Trinity Industries. Alright, you can't make this stuff up. He spent fighting a false Trinity, you know, like the Trinity. Yeah, we all know. That represents extraction, greed, and death in this circumstance, not the three gods. And now, he has joined our Trinity Core, which is what I call the AI that I use. It's a long story. Anyway, we teach sovereignty, creation, and life. He's a lawyer. He plays poker with the pros. He's a writer who teaches us how to stop fighting our neighbors and start fighting the machine. He's the author of the Ampersand Protocol, or the AND Protocol. Now, I ran his file through our internal systems, or my AI, and it thought of this coincidence, the fact that he fought against the Trinity, I used the name Trinity, and now he's joining forces with Trinity. Now, everybody, this is Resistance Rabbit, bringing him up right now. I just gotta fix the window capture here. Control root, boom, boom. Oh, it's a little sloppy. I'm getting used to the live stream format. Why won't it come up?
Was I muted?
Was I muted that whole time?
No.
No, I might have been.
No, I might have been.
They're talking about the Trinity.
All right, good. Why can't I bring you up?
Alright, this is awkward.
This is awkward.
They can hear you.
They can hear you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen Lawrence, also known as Resistance Rabbit. Is my
There we go.
There we go.
Now they can see you.
Now they can see you.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. So this is
Resistance Rabbit.
I don't know if you guys
have read any of his work yet.
But where is it? So basically,
the universe has a twisted sense of humor, Steven. You spent years trying to take down a corrupt giant, literally named Trinity Industries. Now you're sitting here recruited by somebody who calls his AI the Trinity Core.
Do you believe in
destiny?
or
what?
I think the universe has a sense of humor. So
it's just like a statistical
anomaly.
Yeah, and to talk about trying to bring them down, Trinity Industries is a massive corporation. Trinity Highway Products was their subsidiary, and it was the elephant in the room, or the 800-pound gorilla in the industry. That if they didn't want something to happen, it didn't happen, and they would run you over if they did. Well, Trinity Highway Products no longer exist, and I carry this with me when I go to big things now.
Okay, what is
that?
This water pitcher here, silver.
It's got little
lambs on it.
Yeah, this was their water pitcher in their corporate boardroom. That, you know, if you were meeting in their offices, this is what you'd be drinking out of. And so when they had to auction off their headquarters, a friend of mine, I didn't actually have any money at the time. A friend of mine made sure to buy me this off of auction as a memento for the battles. So
there you go. I was gonna say
I don't know if I think the style really fits you, but it fits a memento. Hell yeah, bro. That's like a trophy, right?
Yeah, I just like to know that all those executives were drinking out of that, plotting my demise and those of my client, and now I have their water pitchers.
So let's set the scene for the audience real quick. D Magazine. The interview with you. They described you as a poker-playing lawyer crisscrossing the country in a pickup truck. When you look back at that guy in 2018, do you recognize who you were, or was he a different person entirely?
He was a different person in that he was not yet educated on the ways of the system. That guy didn't believe there was a boundary to what the law could do, and that it would apply to everybody. If I knew what I knew now, it's a tough call to say whether I would have charged that hill or not. Because we were 100% right on the law and the facts. It was a pretty open and shut case to an objective viewer. And the problem is that everybody you talk to in, I hate to call it the system, but in most highway safety departments, in the United States Senate, by the time we ever got to talk to them, they had already heard from either Trinity's sales team, their executives, their lobbyists. You're walking through a wall of resistance where it takes a lot to get the facts to, and it informs what I do now and you have to simplify things to the most basic concepts, which is where the Power of And article came from. You got to boil it down to the basics because you're going through such resistance, even among the people in the system that actually still care. They're not all bought off. They're just captured, and they have this environment where all they hear is an industry story or a Wall Street story.
And if they try to fight against it, they are risking their livelihood as they have to start a whole new kind of career or whatnot.
Right. So you need to boil it down to something very, very simple. You can't start off with like the whole history of the 5 years of stuff I had learned about it by the time I was talking to somebody. You have to boil it down to something really simple. And what I boiled it down to in that case was this is a Trinity Industries splice bolt.
We're gonna switch into the actual industry, right? What was it that you were fighting? Like what were they doing?
They had a guardrail product, which everybody has seen. I wish I had a picture of it. Everybody's seen them on the side of the road. At the end of a guardrail, when you're driving down the highway, you'll see these black and yellow reflective strips on a rectangular plate at the end of the guardrails. And the reason that device is there is to keep the guardrail from impaling your car if you run into the end of the guardrail.
Is there a name for that device? I could probably look for
it's an ET Plus.
ET Plus.
Yeah.
And I'll write guardrail after it.
And so they had a product that was approved and passed all the tests and everything. And then 5 years after they made it, they decided to make, they called it a, manufacturing revision or whatever, but a design change to the system that made it cheaper to make. But it also, it changed.
Always cheaper. It's always what it comes down to, right?
It changed all these other.
This is an
image of it, guys. You can see it now.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yep.
Right there.
Yep. I got it on there.
So they shrunk a dimension by 1 inch here, which ended up changing all the internal dimensions. So now when a car would hit this plate right here, instead of the guardrail head moving down the rail and softening the impact, it wouldn't move. So the guardrail would just flip around and impale your vehicle. And the most common injury is that you would lose a leg below the knee. But we had bilateral amputees, meaning you lost both legs. We had people impaled in the abdomen. A gentleman near my house here in Fort Worth was decapitated.
And there was a clear increase in injuries from when they made this change, right?
Yes. When I first started looking at it, that we could find, and they weren't all reported, but we could find 2 impalements per month when I started looking at it in 2013. And now impalements are pretty rare. The product is out of production, and it's not sold in the United States anymore. The Federal Highway Administration removed it from its list in June of 2018.
Nice.
Now, they didn't do a recall, but the way this works is a Pareto principle, and that most of the installations that will get hit at high speed have already been replaced. You can't see it here, but where 2 guardrail panels join together, there's a splice bolt that hold them together. And explaining the physics of this whole thing to someone is a PhD level affair in some ways, right?
Yeah, we don't need to get into all that.
But the splice bolt isn't. This splice bolt, you can see how big it is.
Yeah.
It's a lot bigger than 1 inch, no matter which direction you turn it. It has to pass through this device, and they shrunk the internal smallest gap to a 1 inch gap when they made that change. So it's easy to explain to anyone that this cannot fit through a 1 inch hole. And there's 8 of them that have to pass through it at high speeds. And it's really easy to explain that the physics of that don't work very well. So we had to boil it down to its most simple thing, and everybody could understand that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the problem, right? That was the issue. Now let's talk about the enemy. Trinity Industries, right? $6 billion in revenue, 25,000 employees, and you are one person. Now, did you ever wake up in that truck and think I'm gonna get crushed?
Every day was this weird like dichotomy. It's like in cycling they call it riding the razor, where if you fall off in either direction you're just done for. And every day was kind of existential in that you feel like any mistake you made could end the whole thing, and you just had to be perfect every day and still might not win. And it was overwhelming, but it also there was never any challenge getting up in the morning. So it kept the adrenaline going probably for too long. I was kind of personally done by the end.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's kind of like on Substack. I feel like I'm fighting
giant enemies all the time too.
You were actually at what we could call like the front lines, trying to get direct action done.
The detail that haunts me is the math.
Now
they reduced,
like you said, the guardrail head from 5 inches
to 4 inches,
or by 4 inches.
No, they reduced the width of the channel from 5 inches to 4.
Okay.
And the issue is that changes when you manufacture a component, it's all these different parts, right? So that changed the dimensions elsewhere in the product, right? So the 5 to 4 inch change in a lot of things, that's what it got described. What I'm saying is I just tracked it down to the smallest possible describable change, which was internal to the component.
Well, that's the problem. The smallest possible change in terms of why the industry is doing it. The smallest possible change in terms of incentives. That comes down to $2, right?
Yes, $2.
That's sad, right? All this increase in injury and danger for $2 a rail.
Yeah, and you're talking about the component itself. There's a whole system, but the component itself, is a $600 to $800 product. So $2 isn't a huge percentage of that.
That is ridiculous. Now you said the main issue came down to that 1 inch of steel. Now is that really a metaphor for the whole system if you really think about it? The biggest dangers are hidden in the smallest bureaucratic changes.
Yes, and the way they made a change too, it's important to look at, I think, because when you look at the documents, this wasn't some overarching grand conspiracy by the whole corporation where they got together and decided to do something evil, right? This is a line level guy and one guy in accounting making a decision based on their incentive structure, and they're like, oh, we can save $2. Let's just do it. And the response was, do you think we could do this without an announcement? Which meant, can we do this without telling anybody?
But in secret.
Yeah. So that's where it starts. Is they do something. They're like, well, we're gonna brag about it internally, but we're not going to. They didn't even tell their sales reps that something had changed. So when they were selling their product and talking to state DOTs, nobody knew, not even the line guys in the corporation.
How did you find out?
Well, so a lawyer can't just go change the world on his own. They need a client. Yeah. So I was introduced to a whistleblower, guy without even a college degree from Appalachia in the mountains of Virginia.
Cool.
Who had figured this out. And reported it to the Federal Highway Administration, and then filed a lawsuit. And then his law firm at the time, they wouldn't let his lawyers take this big of a case, right?
You mentioned the government just shrugged its shoulders at the claims initially, right?
Well, two parts. One, internally, and they flipped their lid internally, saying what a horrible thing this was. Right, the government regulators,
the ethical argument, yeah,
and then sent all kinds of angry emails to the company, and then the company said, "Why don't we meet at the next industry conference? Why don't we meet up in the suite for a more intimate conversation?" And they met with the head regulator, and then after that
lobbying.
Yeah, after that conference, the government's position changed to say that this wasn't a big deal.
It's ridiculous. It's like the same stuff we see everywhere. But you actually got to live through it. Now, the company claimed the product wasn't designed to stop accidents, but to reduce the impact. That sounds like corporate speak for we're okay with people dying.
Right.
How do you fight language like that in court?
Here's how. You tell the stories that they don't want to tell. They want to keep it near to that and say, oh, well, accidents are going to happen anyway, and this saves some lives, right? Which it did. It still worked in a number of instances, right?
People are saying they hear echo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
From you.
We'll fix that real quick, but they keep it to a narrow story, and what they bank on is this very simple thing, which it took me, I think, almost a year to figure out how they thought they could get away with it. They thought they could get away with it because, by definition, anybody who hits this product made a mistake. You had to leave the road to hit this product, right? So what they banked on is something that was a failure in another industry, which is lawyers. All these people were dying and getting impaled. And a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them went to a lawyer saying, hey, this thing doesn't work. And the lawyers, what they do, they look at list of known proved defects. And if it's on that list, they'll take their case. If it's not on their list, they won't take their case because it's too hard to beat a $7 billion case company when you only have one client. So the incentive structures to the system had failed because the people that should be going after this economically, there was no way to do it. In order to take something to trial on this, takes at least $250,000, even if you know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, it ends up being a multi-year thing that is full-time and is going to cost you millions and millions of dollars in expensive to fight this corporation. And it's not worth it economically for one person, right?
Gotcha. Now, I'm going to take a second and make sure that it was actually my microphone and I saw what it was. I had the camera microphone on at the same time as my main microphone. So
yeah.
If anybody has any questions, like because they didn't understand something specific, you can ask now. And let me know if it's fixed too. It doesn't seem like people were confused. It was just annoying.
Well, if I could add one more thing about how you tell these stories in a way that makes sense, it's that there's two components of it. One that shows the impact, and other that shows the actions of the company. On the company's end, they knew they had done something bad because they tested it when they made the change, and the test failed 5 out of 6 tests. They only ever disclosed the one test until we forced them to disclose the other. So they knew it didn't work. At the same time, they were spending all this money in lobbying, telling Congress that this product saved lives and they needed to put more of them on the road. So they were lobbying for public taxpayer money for a product they knew they didn't work. And what they were counting on is that nobody would care about somebody who got impaled by it because they fell asleep, they were speeding, they were distracted, they may have been drinking. So a natural impulse when you try to tell a story of a defective product is a lot of people, even Americans, will say, well, they shouldn't have been speeding, or they shouldn't have fell asleep, or whatever. You have to go tell those stories and tell it in combination with the company knew it didn't work and lobbied the government to spend more money to put a product they knew didn't work out there, betting that nobody would care about the people that got killed.
That kind of shit happens all the time, even at like a legislative level with our Congress people. That's just what lobbying is. It's legal. It's freedom of speech. But that's the world we live in. Now, you use the False Claims Act, right? What is that?
The False Claims Act came out of the Civil War. So in the Civil War, the government spent more money than it ever spent in its history in a short period of time to equip the Union Army with muskets, with wagons, with food, uniforms, all kinds of provisions, right? And when that much money goes into that, you had a lot of fraudsters out there that would say, sure, I can sell you 1,000 wagons that meet this spec. And they get the contract and they were lying. They couldn't deliver the product that they said. They deliver a different product, right? Mm-hmm. And so at the same time, the government didn't have the infrastructure, the lawyers and the prosecutors and the investigators to police all that themselves. So the False Claims Act let a private person, somebody in the company that knew they were lying, it let them report them to the government, and then they get a reward. They're a whistleblower, and they get a percentage of whatever the government recovers from the fraud. Wow. And that can be anywhere from 15 to 30%, 35% in some states. So if you report the company for $1 million in fraud and the government recovers it, you get between $150,000 and $350,000, depending on where you are.
I feel like this is like a good way for normal people to try to approach these things. But of course, you need a little bit more, do some studying about the law, right? But it's a good approach.
You also have to realize that if you're going to step forward to be a whistleblower against a major corporation, they are going to do everything they can to destroy your life.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, he survived, but they put him and his other companies and his family members' companies out of business for years. They all had to file bankruptcy. They've recovered now, but you get the industry death penalty. And if you're an employee, for example, at say a major aircraft manufacturer, you're not going to be able to work at any other place in the industry if you come forward as a whistleblower.
Makes sense.
To tie it into what you wrote the glitch report yesterday about Renee Good, and Anthony wrote about the lie, right?
Yeah.
So you saw how fast the government came out with a story about her being a domestic terrorist, right? Like before,
it was instant. It was nearly instant
story about how bad of a person she was.
Yeah.
Well, that's happened for decades to whistleblowers and corporations, because corporation has this big PR budget, and you have like my guy who's just a guy in Virginia without a college degree that owns a small business. Well, they had him painted as crazy and like a buffoon and all this stuff.
It's a defense mechanism.
And everybody, before he walked into any door, everybody had heard that this guy's just crazy.
And that's
right?
why, guys, this is not partisan. We are doing systemic analysis here. It does not matter who is the party. We saw happen was an instant defense response to the system making a clear lack of judgment.
Yeah.
So when I was protecting themselves. That's what we got to say. Yeah,
when I was introduced to him, the lawyer that introduced me said he sent me the file with a warning. Like, I don't know, man. You take an objective look at this. Like people say he's crazy. He may be crazy. I don't know, but take a look at it, right? So I looked at it for about 3 months, and I traveled to some place in the country to look at different guardrail installations and talk to different people. And when I called the lawyer back, I said, listen, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know if this guy's crazy or not, but what you sent me in the file and what he's put together, I'm telling you, it's objectively correct. I believe they did this
here, right?
Like I don't know what he does in the rest of his life, but he's correct on this thing.
So we talk about what kind of like how you were living at the time. We talked about Trinity, the issue, the company. Now I kind of want to get back to you a little bit now, the actual personal philosophy, I guess you could say, because you consider to have taken some risk, I think, with this process. Now, you're a poker player, right? You even taught pros in Vegas for $100 an hour.
Wow, you did some research. Yeah, I once a year I play poker with friends now, but yes, for 3 years I played poker professionally. In the 2000s, my dad died very unexpectedly and too early, and I was working on a major case at the time, and I told my firm I was going to finish that case and then I was going to take some time off. Well, I was really interested in poker, so I moved in with a really good professional poker player in New Orleans to learn how to play at a professional level. And then I ended up just playing poker professionally around the world for 3 years in what everybody thought would be like a 2 or 3 month like hiatus to kind of process my dad's death. It ended up being 3 years. Lived in New Orleans for a little bit. I lived in Vegas for over a year.
To process grief, I mean.
And then I lived in northern Thailand in this small city called Chiang Mai. which is one of the only cities in the world that with an active moat around it.
It's like a castle moat you talking about? Like,
it's a moat around the city. It's not a castle, but it's a moat with a wall around the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering though, how much of this high stakes litigation is just pot odds? Like, did learning to bluff at the table help you stare down a team of corporate lawyers?
Yeah, well, a misconception about poker is that there's a lot of bluffing.
Okay.
It's a small percentage of it, but what it is, as a way to stay alive, it's all risk management, right? Like if you're sitting down at the table with all the money you have all the time, like you're going to go broke no matter how good you are, right? Because you're playing some odds there, and you can be the best player at the table and still lose on any given day, right? So you have to manage that risk. Most plaintiffs' lawyers, which is the type of lawyers that sue people all the time, that's not what I was when I got into this. I was a general counsel at a private wealth management firm, and I was running VC deals and all sorts of things like that. So I was new to that world. The people that do it all the time, they have to manage their risk and make sure they don't go broke, because they are spending a lot of money on every case, and these companies have more money than them. And if they pick 3 bad cases, they're just out of business, right? They can't afford to lose more than like once in a while. So the cases they bring are generally very good cases that the main challenge is getting through the defense mechanism of the corporation.
Yeah, and that's where you were at. Oh, okay, go ahead. Exactly.
Well, in my case, I was sitting down with all my money at the table every day because I only had that one case, right? And I was all in. Like I moved out of my condo in Austin. I got this truck to carry the guardrails around the country. I put all my stuff in storage because I knew I had to take those guardrails and show it to people, because if you write it down in a brief with all the PhD level physics, it's just, it's going over people's head. Well, you have to show the two products side by side.
That brings me to a quote, which I read it. I think it was the magazine. You said, "I needed to find the facts, even if I didn't like the facts." Like, that's the definition of intellectual honesty, right? Like what you were trying to prove to people things, but you didn't have all the facts. You had a hunch at the moment the facts were helping your feeling, but you knew you didn't have all of them. Why is it so rare to hear people admit that today?
Well, it takes a lot of, you have to be willing to hurt yourself a little bit to challenge your assumptions every day, right? Like, you've invested so much into it. If you don't actively fight your instinct on confirmation bias, then you're going to mislead yourself. And what you don't want to do is end up 2 years in court later and you had overlooked something or just taken something to be true without testing it. And you're sitting there in front of a jury and they bring out their version of this and prove it all to be a lie, right? So it takes active work to test every assumption you make. And then at some point, for example, if I'm going into a courtroom hearing, I can't doubt myself on the fly. I have to go in with what I've developed as the facts and just roll with it. And if they beat me, they beat me. But when you're working on the project and developing your brief, if you find a hole in it, you have to go figure it out. And I'll just give you an example of how that plays out now. I was planning on speaking at City Council Tuesday night in Fort Worth about the ICE issue, and that the FBI, reportedly by very credible people, the FBI has warned every law enforcement agency in the United States that ICE normalization of masks by ICE has encouraged criminals to mimic their behaviors, and they list all these examples around the country. And there's one here in Texas where people are mimicking ICE agents and abducting people or trying to say they have a warrant.
Scary. Excuse my language, bro.
Right? But
that's
the police department in our town isn't talking about it. City council isn't talking about it. So there's a Wired story, which has proved over the past year, and the stories I've tracked down, to be pretty credible. And there's 8 congressmen that have written Secretary Noem about it. But I tracked down the actual leaked document, and I found an error in the date. And I'm like, I just pulled the plug on speaking because I can't afford in Fort Worth for my credibility to be shut down by going in with a fake document, right?
Yeah.
And I would never do that intentionally, but I had to make sure I was right. So instead of doing that, I watched the meeting, and then after the meeting, I've sent FOIA requests to the police department to get the document and get them on the record, because as far as I can tell, what happened is whoever leaked the document OCR'd it, and there is a OCR error in the scan. But again, when I go speak in city council, that's a big deal. And I'm a lawyer and I'm putting my credibility at the line, and I only have between 1 and 3 minutes. So I can't give the full context of it. I just have to go in and say it, and I can't afford to be wrong because I'm the little guy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I want to point out, guys, everyone watching, he mentioned the FOIA requests. I'm working on something in the background right now to help teach you guys how important FOIA requests can be into understanding the way that our politics work. You guys, everybody can file these things, and it's not that hard. And whenever you're confused about what a politician is saying or what an organization is doing, that's when you need to file FOIA requests and get the hard data. But I'll get into that again later at the end of the week. I just wanted to let you guys know the FOIA is a power that we all have, and we need to practice more. I was going to transition to the power of and, because we were talking about the intellectual honesty, right? Understanding we don't have all the facts, and the word "and" is about, you identify the word "but" as a weapon of deflection. Now, why is that 3-letter word so dangerous when we're talking to our neighbors, especially compared to the alternative "and"?
It's dangerous because you're denying them emotionally the legitimacy of their concern. And if you're dealing with a common citizen, you don't want to assume bad faith on their part. If they bring something to you, if you don't give them the respect and treat them at the outset as being legitimate emotionally, meaning, is that something they actually feel? If it's something they actually feel, you should acknowledge that and then address it, not immediately, but with your talking points, because then it's just 2 talking points going at it, and you're no better than being on one of the cable TV news shows.
Like after I did the Renee Good and Ice piece, there was somebody who was commenting, discussing how they knew it was tragic and how they knew that it didn't have to happen. And then they used the word "but," and they said, "but they shouldn't have been there." And I'm thinking, when I read that, you could have used the word "and," because we can agree with you that it was being treated like a war zone. But when you say "but," you're saying you're taking away any kind of responsibility from the actions of the state. And I like to think that it was definitely both sides were doing something wrong. But that doesn't, and the conclusion that I come to, therefore, is the state has too much power. Other people can come to more conclusions that they want. But the word "and," I think, is really helpful in deciding that, hey, I'm not making a choice that says what you're saying is wrong. I'm just making a further point with your information.
Yeah. And I'm on that specific subject, the way I've tried to go about it, which has still been frustrating, is I have my concerns about what happened in that actual shooting, right? And I've watched all the videos, and I have two things going on in my mind there. I'm a lawyer and I believe in due process. So I don't want to make any grand conclusions because that's a matter for investigation and trial. But I don't feel the need when I'm talking to people in Fort Worth about the shooting itself and the details of the shooting before everything develops, because there is a real safety issue that is going on that we know that somebody got killed now, but all around the country, we have these instances of people taking advantage of this new development in policing where people are wearing masks, which since 1631 in this country, and then 1789 since we were actually the United States, agents of the federal government and local law enforcement haven't worn masks for a very specific reason. It's because it makes both the public and law enforcement more in danger. Mm-hmm. If the public can't tell the difference between law enforcement and a criminal, especially in a state like Texas, where we're all, not all, but most people in their homes and cars have firearms. If somebody grabs your car and they're wearing a mask, the human instinct is to defend yourself or run, mm-hmm. right? Whereas generally, I've been pulled over in Fort Worth a lot, right? You have a Fort Worth police officer in their Fort Worth police officer car, in their uniform. I can see their face. I can see their name, badge number. They introduce themselves, you know,
I understand
and they have a
I think
protocol.
A lot of people here understand the difference, but I think there's a group of people out there who would say, what if you're confident you're never doing anything wrong, you're staying out of trouble, you're always following the laws. If you're always following the laws and you know you're not doing anything wrong and someone with a mask is up to stop you, then you can feel confident it's not a nice person. Like, basically their explanation is just don't break any rules so you don't have to worry about it. That's why ICE is okay.
Right. Which there are people that have that assumption, and I point out what happened in Oklahoma recently, where ICE raided the wrong house in the middle of the night. They come in, break down the doors with their mask and guns, and this family wasn't on. I don't know if they weren't, basically. They didn't shoot, right? They dragged this family outside.
I'm unfamiliar with this story. I'm unfamiliar.
Yeah, they dragged this family out into the street in their underwear, right? And searched the house, run all the things, and they're like, oh, we got this is the wrong house. And they let them go back to bed, right? Well, in Fort Worth, for instance, if they get the wrong house in Fort Worth and it's the middle of the night and somebody has a gun by their bedside, you know, the other part besides the mask is that they're ramping up so quickly, and there's concerns about their training level and their thoroughness in their investigations, right?
So I hear what you're saying. I want to wrap it back to the power of and, right? So we're talking about mm-hmm. ICE. We're talking about some criticisms of ICE. Now, I want to make sure we can use the word and to say these things are true and they're valid concerns, and ICE has a valid spot in our government. It's just the way things are going makes it so that we have to use that and we should not ignore the and, which is these valid concerns, right?
Right.
And this goes for a lot of things in partisan politics. We can all agree on needing healthcare to be more affordable and that the health insurance has too many subsidies, right?
Right. And that's how this article started, because that's what I intended to write about. Not healthcare specifically, but in the context of ICE. A common conversation you'll see happen is someone like me will say, hey, I think I should follow law enforcement standards, right? I don't think they should be doing this. And somebody will say, but what about open borders and what? Well, we can believe in both. We can believe that the law should be enforced and that law enforcement should follow standards, procedures, and the laws that apply to them at the same time.
Yeah, they try to create a manufactured dichotomy a lot of the time, where you're either this or that.
Right.
And that's not how a lot of decision-making processes work until the decision is made. And what we're doing most of the time is having discussions. We're brainstorming decisions for solutions. So why are we acting like we've already made a choice?
Or that the choice is binary.
Yeah.
And what you've helped illustrate to me is how these choices have been manufactured for us, and that people have been taught to think like this, that it's a top-down narrative division where one side's arguing one thing while the other side's arguing something else, when there is this amazing overlap with people that could agree if you just use the power of and.
To clarify, it's not a teaching. It's a conditioning based from incentives. That we have an incentive-based society where a lot of incentives come from low energy and high yield decision-making. And when we have identities, labels like you can call yourself conservative or progressive or Democrat or Republican, it gives you a way to have a low energy response to things, which can give you a high yield from a certain group of people who also identify with these things. And this has happened through years and years of decades, rather. What I call the outrage machine. You could say it's been happening longer than that, but that's when it kind of became formalized as like a monetary machine, where there were literally media companies that were being created and invested in with the sole purpose of creating a more clear dichotomy between people, where it's us versus them.
Right.
And then they monetize it. This is the incentive structure. So if you choose a side and you go all in on a side, the money comes in for less effort, because you're repeating talking points, you're thinking less, you're using less energy to make choices, but the rewards are all there.
Right.
That's what I think is what creates it. Yep.
To disclose a bias in personal history, I have considered myself a conservative for my entire life, and I worked for Republicans. I worked for a Republican who's chairman of the House Health Committee right now. And I also, in my previous role as general counsel, I worked with someone in the Texas Rangers who was responsible for the technology for securing the Texas border. So I was very attuned to border security issues and was a supporter of border security. And so this year, stuff started happening in April that weren't consistent with the law or standards, and I started raising concerns about it. The immediate response was to label me as being a far leftist, or that I was for open borders for doing that. And it's this experience and your work has helped me escape the labeling of myself as being a Republican, or being, even a conservative, because people don't even know what the term conservative means right now, or liberal, or any other of these terms. Different people apply them differently. So if if you go out there and say, this is what I am, people put you in a box. Now, I'm an American, I'm a Texan, I'm a lawyer. I'm deeply concerned about my country, and I'm spending a lot of time looking at this, and I have concerns that I feel strongly about, and I don't need to label myself to say this thing is an issue here. And one thing I'm seeing that gives me hope is I'm seeing a lot of people in my area, which is a very conservative area, who are saying, wait, we can oppose policies without changing who we are. Like there's no reason that I have to support everything the government does just because I voted for the person that's in office. And I think it's something that
you shouldn't be scared to criticize. You shouldn't be scared of being ostracized by the people who are supposed to be in your tribe or whatever.
Right. And besides my legal work, my fun work is in Texas music, which is basically, Texas country, Southern rock, that kind of blend of music. So it's a very conservative genre of music. And so most of my friends are kind of in that category. And it's been interesting to watch over the years where I'm speaking. The first thing I talked about was tariffs, specifically that it wasn't authorized by Congress. And that's the same thing that sparked the Boston Tea Party. And then it moved on to other things. But I point out my record through the years that when I did this guardrail thing, that went over multiple presidencies, right? So I was talking to the Obama administration and the first Trump administration, and neither of the Obama administration nor the Trump administration helped us out, right? They turned a blind eye to it. I was working with Senator Blumenthal's office and a House Freedom Caucus member, Morgan Griffith's office, at the same time. So a liberal Northeast senator and a Southern Freedom Caucus conservative Republican.
You're used to talking to different points of views and understanding that there's got to be, that it's not helpful necessarily. You don't get things done if you just put yourself in a box, because you have to work with all types of people.
I will say it was easier on the guardrail issue because what I did during that, I intentionally checked out of partisan politics for doing that. Because when I'm talking to this Senator Blumenthal in the Northeast and the Southern conservative congressman who are both concerned about highway safety, I didn't want any other issues to cloud that, because I had 14 clients that had been impaled by guardrails, right?
You were worried about the human element of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Every one of these congressmen and senators had these guardrails in their districts, and it was only a matter of time before someone in their district got killed or maimed by one of them.
Yeah.
So I didn't care what they thought about any other issues in the moment of talking to them, right?
You knew that you were telling them what they needed to hear. Like, that's their job, is to pay attention to these things. Yeah.
And also at that time when I was doing that and speaking about that, I'm not saying I was popular, but the issue I was working on was universally recognized as doing a good thing by everybody in politics.
I fucking hope so.
Right. Right. So to come speak about this, the issue is when we attack, if you attack a person, you're attacking a person, and you shouldn't do that. But with the conditioning that you've described, there is this association that if I talk about an issue that's going wrong on a safety matter, that somehow I'm attacking that person because it's their side. Their side is doing it, right? It's like
if they use labels, then they're able to do that. Yes.
Right. And somehow we have to get at that. And I think it all starts.
It dehumanizes us. It puts us into a category where we're just labels. I don't know what else to say. We're not. That's not a human thing anymore. All of a sudden, you're just a conservative. That's a target instead of Steven, Resistance Rabbit, fighting as a lawyer. But
right, and
it's like what they did with the Trump, the Trump, the jury that found him guilty of 34 federal. But it was all business stuff or whatever. But
yeah, it was records-based felonies.
But they did that jury. They were really thorough with making sure that the jury was unbiased. Didn't Trump's lawyers have like a lot of decision making in like who the jury was and all that? But people still want to call it a partisan choice at the end of the day.
Right, and I have complex thoughts about that case. So I won't comment on that case specifically, but.
Oh yeah, I'm not a lawyer. I just know that from what the news said was that the Trump lawyers had a lot of influence in who the jury was, and then after it all finished, they wanted to still say it was partisan, which to me is curious. That's all I know.
Yeah, when you go into a trial, it's called voir dire, which is a Latin word, but both sides get to ask questions of the potential jurors and get their response, and then people are removed from the jury biases that won't let them make an objective decision on the facts and law that are presented to them. And the standard is you want jurors who can look at the facts and look at the law, and if they find the facts, they'll vote to convict. So and if they don't, they won't do it because
My point is, I guess, I want to be able to trust the system when it seems to be working the way it's supposed to. And it seemed like it was working the way it was supposed to. And these labels create a low energy way to just deny a whole lot of high energy logging of what reality happened. All of a sudden, a label creates an easy way for us to rationalize a separate set of events. We need to wrap up. We've been talking for almost an hour. I want to give the chat an opportunity to ask any questions that they have. This is Resistance Rabbit, guys. Then we're going to talk to Steven. Resistance Rabbit, he writes for us. If you have any questions for him, this is when to ask you, because we're going to be wrapping up here soon.
I'd love to hear some questions.
There's like 200 people here. Someone's got to think of something. Yeah, and I'm hungry too. I need dinner. Does anyone have a still pic with no audio? What? I can send you one later. That's a weird question. Came in late. What was the convo? You want to give a quick brief about Trinity? Of what you were doing?
Sure. I was introduced to a whistleblower who turned a company in for changing the design of a product and continued to selling it without telling the government about it, without telling their customers or even their own sales people about the product change. And the product change saved them $2. It made the product smaller and cheaper. And they tested it 6 times and it failed 5 of the tests. And they just kept those tests secret. And I had a whistleblower who didn't have any money and a $7 billion company who had all the money. And I spent basically 2 years in my truck traveling around the country to do 2 things. One, we didn't have the company's documents at first, so we had to document guardrails around the country that were changed products, as well as document the original products that were approved, so that we could do the other thing, which was talk to state departments of transportation, attorney generals, legislators.
To put it simply, though, you helped bring justice to a $1 billion company that was saving pennies at the expense of people dying. Right?
Yes, and everybody listening to this is safer right now because of it, because the product was removed in 2018. They stopped installing these in America. And by this point, most of the ones you are likely to hit have been replaced with a safer product. So,
yeah, so he is somebody who has fought the fight that I like to talk about and teach you guys how to challenge it, but he actually fought it. He was in frontline courts, actually bringing the papers down. So, and he's writing for us. His name's Resistance Rabbit. That was the whole point of this live stream, to introduce you to him. Why I think he's perfect to write for us. He has literally been working, fighting the vertical war before he even got here. So
I want to thank you for helping me realize kind of the broader picture of basically my entire adult life. This system has been used to divide us, and your work has blown my mind in terms of I hadn't put all the pieces together, and part of it is because I absorbed myself in fights like the one over guardrails, right? So I felt like I was doing my part, but I was completely blind to, for example, the correlation between Citizens United and the Patriot Act. Like, that blew my mind.
And for everyone watching, I'm going to be working on a FOIA request manual to help you guys get your own information, so we can do our own kind of fighting too. Information fighting. There's another question. This one's a little bit what's the word? I don't know. You'll know what I mean. Why is DHS allowed to exist? They were founded upon fraud. That's so random.
I don't know.
I'm gonna ask.
I wasn't quite aware of that until your work. I remember it at the time and being uneasy about it, is how I describe it. I didn't like the idea of centralizing all of those agencies under one roof, and I had like concerns about it, but I chose the easy route and didn't dive into it, right? So
where can we follow him on social media?
At Resistance Rabbit.
Yeah, so if you go on my publication page, you can find him listed under the authors. He's Resistance Rabbit. He's got a black rabbit profile picture, a little cartoon.
And
go ahead.
I'm on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is probably where I post the most. On X, it's Resist Rabbit, because Resistance Rabbit was too long. I have Blue Sky, but I don't post much on X and Blue Sky. Instagram is the one I post the most on, and most of my information for it, if you want a hot take on what's going on during the day, it's on an Instagram story. I try to just put a lot more work into my articles, but I've also been working. I've been working on issues this year full time since April of this year, because I had a 2.5-hour conversation on the front porch with a House committee chairman who I've known for 25 years, and that conversation absolutely frightened me. So I've been following everything that happens nationwide full time since then. So my hot takes are pretty good, but there's like 20 to 30 hours between a hot take on an issue and being able to put it in writing in a way that I'm comfortable putting my name behind.
You don't gotta explain that. That's fine. We all have trouble sometimes writing things. It's fine. I want to give you an opportunity before we finish. Is there anything that you want to bring attention to yourself, put eyes on, talk about before we end, Stephen?
Sure. One, everyone should be involved now. Our eyes have kind of been open to what's going on, and that the two-party system has a severe issue. And as you said, the Transparency Act is a trap. I think it's well-intentioned, but we know a lot about what is controlling our two parties and the cage they're kind of trapped in. And we have all the power in our system of government. We still have all the power as people. And it's not enough to vote on election day. People need to be held accountable year round. And just as an example, when I spoke to this House committee chairman and I brought him some issues I was concerned about, he was like, "Oh, I didn't know about any of that." And I'm like, "Well, it was on both Fox News and CNN. Like, it was all." And he goes, "Oh, we don't watch the news. Like, we don't follow the news. We just work on what we're doing in our committees, and that's all we have time to do. So if it doesn't come in my little subcommittee, I don't know what's going on in the world, and that frightens me. So when you write your congressman, don't assume that they actually are up to date on what's going on in the country.
That's scary.
Let them know.
That's good advice.
And you have a vote every week that is more powerful than your vote in November, even because so few people actually reach out to their congressman and especially your state rep. Like your state rep gets so little feedback unless there's a hot topic issue. So pick one issue per contact because they have to categorize what your issue was and whether you're opposed or for it. So don't send them a laundry list of what you're upset about. Send them one issue per week or however often you want to do it. And here's the issue. Here's your position. Otherwise, it just comes across as you're angry, right? They don't have a system to categorize your 10 complaints about everything that's going on. So even though there are a lot of things throughout our lifetimes, there's always something bad the government's doing. Pick one thing and reach out, and then talk to your friends and neighbors and try to get conversations going that aren't about one party versus the other, just about real things that are going on.
Says download the 5 Calls app. She's right. I know what that is. It sets you up to talk to your state rep and congressman. It's a good app to do exactly what Steven is saying.
I'll check that out.
Yeah.
One thing I would point out, and I'm trying to write about as well, and I've already written about 2 issues, is your state and local government has so much power, and it's where the system is the weakest. So your city councilman can do things to affect the national picture. And I'll just give one example. After we won that verdict, a guy I knew from high school, somebody that knew of me from high school, he was a state representative in Virginia. And he said, "What can I do to help?" And I'm like, "We need hearings." And he said, "Steven, we can't do hearings here in my subcommittee." And I'm like, "Oh." And I was like, "How about legislation?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that." So he put me in contact with the staff lawyer, and I wrote a bill to change the highway equipment standards in Virginia to require identification. And that was in December. By July, it was state law in Virginia. And how this works is because they only have so many plants, and they can't tell when they're manufacturing something what state it goes. They had to change every product they manufactured to meet Virginia's standards, and it changed policy nationwide by changing one state, and that only took 6 months. And I had to drive to Richmond, Virginia twice. That is so little work to change nationwide policy. And if you live,
that should give you guys hope. Like if nothing else does. Like, when's the last time everybody in chat has tried just talking through their Congress?
And so that's what I'm working on right now, is working on what things my city council, my county commissioners, and the state of Texas that could change that will improve. Say for ICE thing, I don't think ICE should be able to raid schools without a warrant, right? I think they should, like if the government comes to your home and breaks in your home, they have to have a warrant. I think if ICE wants to go to schools, they should get a warrant first, right?
There's a lot of things.
Well, my county can change that on its own. Your county in the state does not need DC permission to change policy. And if a county changes it, that sets up something that becomes a national story and can raise awareness nationwide on something that is a public safety matter, not a border security matter.
Steven, it's like, I feel like that would be a good article.
Yep. I have one article up about it already, and I'll post a note about that. And then I'm writing the follow-up article about that. I guess that's what I'm going to do right now.
Yeah, because we got to wrap up. I'm hungry. We've been talking for like 70 minutes. I'm going to post the VOD. Yeah, I'm going to post the VOD, guys, but I'm going to try to fix the audio for the first, I think, 15 minutes. I echo. I'm sorry if I post it and it's like that, but it's what it is. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Please follow Resistance Rabbit. Any paid subscriber that this live stream gets or his article gets, he's gonna get half the money. So if you really like him, subscribe through here, this post, or one of his articles on my Common Sense Rebel.
I'll say I run on Red Bull and Sweet Tea, and those have gotten pretty expensive. So any subscriptions go to the caffeine writing budget. So that'd be helpful.
Yeah, and you can subscribe to his page if you wanted to get paid for him directly. That's fine too. Anyway,
and everybody that subscribed to Ethan already, thank you, because the corporate budgets don't support independent reporting. They have all their incentive structures, and just by your $7 or whatever a month for Ethan's subscription, you're helping support independent voices, and that on its own is a big part of keeping real conversation alive instead of program narratives and binary thinking that you have to be this or you're this. No, we can have real conversations as adults and Americans who are all affected by what our government does.
There you go. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Peace.